We are on the precipice of another WGA strike, meaning that the writers would stop production on many major films. There is precedent to show that this ruins movies. Let's talk about it. So the Writers Guild of America is seeking to be paid more in terms of how much the movies are making, how much cost of living has gone up.
Right.
In my opinion, I don't think it's unreasonable. But what I do want to talk about for sure is the last time this happened in 2008, 2009, this strike had major consequences. Because what happens with movies is writers involved with the WGA are not allowed to write anymore. And so then a movie would start shooting and they'd be stuck with whatever they had before the strike happened. And a lot of times, this can ruin certain franchise, certain tentpole movies. And there are some interesting quotes from the makers and stars of these movies showing exactly how that happened. I want to start with the worst XMen film and the worst Wolverine film. X-Men Origins Wolverine with their 2 stars, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. It was the writer's strike, so we couldn't have a writer. Literally, the script would say things like, Deadpool comes in, talking a mile a minute, very funny. Where's the dialogue? We'd say, yeah, man, do whatever you can. Ryan Reynolds says, so we were in the middle of production, there were no writers, no anything. Every line I have in the movie, I just wrote myself because in the script we had, it said Wade Wilson shows up, talks really fast. I was like, what? What am I supposed to do with that? And as you'll recall, he didn't do much with it. But we now have Deadpool instead. That's a better film,
which
right?
is a much better film and so much, it showcases Ryan Reynolds' excellent acting abilities and maybe
his devotion to the character too.
Totally, so maybe he just shouldn't be writing this character.
No, get a professional and he can ad-lib some parts. And the issue is, that's all there is. On a lot of these films, the stipulation is the director and the actor can work together, but no one can write. And then there are certain movies where just everything had to go in verbatim. So a writer would say a weird line and be like, can I change that? And they'd say, no.
Yeah.
There's another movie I want to talk about. A not great one. Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Michael Bay said this, when I look back at it, that was crap. The writer's strike was coming hard and fast. It was just terrible to do a movie where you've got to have a story in 3 weeks. I was prepping a movie for months where I only had 14 pages of some idea of what the movie was. It's a BS way to make a movie. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes. Aaron Kruger, the co-writer, said, many of those things under normal process would have been considered a first draft outline, and then suddenly you're locked into some of those things, and at that point it becomes very difficult, very expensive to try and rework macro ideas. So that may explain why the Transformers, that Transformers movie was a little light on story.
Well, I think that didn't he end up in the writer's room just kind of trying to write it himself and just putting in a lot of action scenes just to fluff it up?
I mean, yes, you can kind of hide things in editing, but there's some things you just can't hide. I think actually the first Star Trek movie was also locked in at this point, but they did do a much better job at covering up whatever issues. It wasn't probably what JJ and the rest of the filmmakers wanted, but
well, just to reference what you said before, one of the things they can do when they're on the strike is they can actually, a director can work with an actor and they can come up with lines together, right? As long as they're not written in the script, the actor can make up lines as they go. And it sounds like J.J. Abrams was really trying to support his actors maybe a little bit more.
In some ways.
You're right.
In some ways. It's an interesting set of rules, because also like, J.J. Abrams is a member of the WGA.
Right.
But he was the director in the movie, so he had different rights and abilities there. One case where the actor maybe did not appreciate having to do a lot of his own coming up with lines on the spur of the moment was Daniel Craig in Quantum of Solace. Here's how that went. You swear that you'll never get involved with shit like that, and it happens. On Quantum, we were fucked. We had the bare bones of a script, and then there was a writer's strike, and there was nothing we could do. We couldn't employ a writer to finish it. I say to myself, never again. But who knows? there was me trying to rewrite scenes, and a writer, I am not. Oof. Director Mark Forster said, so ultimately I said, okay, the idea was to make a follow-up to Casino Royale, and ultimately I felt like, okay, worst scenario, the strike goes on, I'll just make it sort of like a 70s revenge movie. Very action-driven, lots of cuts to hide that there's a lot of action and a little less story to disguise it. I can definitely see that in that film.
I can definitely see that in that film. That was not Daniel Craig's best.
His best. I don't believe Quantum of Solace is most people's favorite of the Daniel Craig Bond films.
Nope.
I'm seeing a lot of head shaking off camera, a little bit of sadness. Lastly, there's another movie that was part of a major franchise called G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. Star Channing Tatum said, look, I'll be honest, I fucking hate that movie. I hate that movie. And that's the only quote we have on that because I think it summed it up the most.
I feel like we don't even need to talk about that one because I just think people just like to pretend that it never happened and that poor Channing Tatum was never in that movie.
Well, I think it just goes to show that perhaps the writers do have a point in that their work is, while it may go undetected if they've done it well, it's very vital to the success or failure of a film and how the audience receives it. Even if you are Michael Bay and you can do a lot of explosions and get away with it. Look, you saw those expletives. He wasn't really happy with how that turned out. He would have preferred a writer. We would have had a better film.
Right.
I mean, at least a better film.
I mean, at least if Channing Tatum could have choreographed some dance moves to that, then I think we would have been fine.
Oh no, the Baroness is here. Yeah, that would be a better film.
That would be a better film.
I'm just saying, maybe the writers are pretty important. Controversial opinion, I know. But this could affect some films in the future. Like, for instance, we have Captain Marvel, a film I mentioned earlier today, which would probably be affected by this.
Yes.
We have a few other really high-profile tentpole films under Marvel's previews, the next Spider-Man film, Transformers 6, Fast and the Furious 9, and a few others that would probably be significantly under par if we were to go on a strike. It does have disastrous conclusions if this happens.
I don't know how they would ad-lib the next Avengers Infinity War. I don't think you can just write like, blah, 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 walks in, laughs. Like, I don't think that could happen.
Deadpool shows up and is hilarious. And then the owners of Deadpool's movie rights would be like, nah.
Yeah.
At this point, there'd be even more trouble. I'm just saying, guys, it could go real bad. What do you think was the worst thing to come out of the last writer's strike? That could be television, that could be movies. Let us know below what you think, and please like and subscribe for more.